Welcome to Buckdancer's Choice by Dickey. Let's get started. So I would hear out those lungs. The air split into 9 levels. Some gift of tongues of the whistler. In the invalid's bed, my mother, warbling all day to herself. The 1,000 variations of one song, it's called Buckdancer's Choice. For years, they have all been dying out. The classic buck and wingmen of traveling minstrel shows. With them also old woman was dying of breathless angina, yet still found breath enough to whistle up in my head. A slight like a one-man band, freed black with cymbals that healed, an ex-slave who thrivingly danced to the ring of his own clashing light. Through the 1,000 variations of one song, all day to my mother's prone music, the invalid's warbler's note. While I crept close to the wall, sock-footed, to hear the sounds alter, her tongue like a mockingbird's break. Through stratum after stratum of a tone, proclaiming what choices there are for the last dancers of their kind. For ill women and for all slaves of death and children enchanted at walls, with a brass beating glow underfoot. Not dancing, but nearly risen through barn-like, theater-like houses on the wings of the buck and wing. There you have it. A Buckdancer's Choice by Dickey. Now, a sort of introduction of what we're going to be going through. Now, this poem kind of begins slow and kind of reminiscent on a time of pain and exhaustion in a hospital. I mean, this is what this poem is talking about. The speaker was in pain and in a hospital, as it explains, mother at their side. But as we go through, the rhythm increases slightly and the energy comes alive in the poem when it starts describing the buck dancer, this imagined dancer. And then the end, it ends thoughtfully and quietly, reflecting the speaker's realization about pain and survival and how it's similar to that of a buck dancer. And now, what this poem is really about, this poem is about suffering, frankly. I mean, it's about lying in a hospital bed after surgery, awake at night in pain. I know that full well going through knee surgery, but it also shows that there is hope in suffering. While we are suffering the pain, the speaker imagines a buck dancer performing an energetic folk song with dance and life within himself. But this dancer becomes an extended metaphor, and now we can analyze this. The buck dancer symbolizes the speaker's will to fight through the pain. The buck dancer is fast, rhythmic, and it reflects this southern folk dance. And this contrasts the suffering that is happening in that hospital bed. This buck dancer is like a vision of hope for suffering. And now the effect on the meaning for this is that the dancer represents rhythm, life, and survival. Like, this is the hope for this person that is in pain. And even though the speaker is in the hospital, he can't move, his mind still imagines. That's the only part of his body that the speaker has left, is his mind. And his mind imagines movement and imagines strength, while the physical body just cannot. Now, this kind of shows the idea that Dickey's introducing, that humans can endure or mentally, even during physical suffering, through hope. And now, the second main device in this is vivid imagery. Dickey uses intense, kind of gruesome physical imagery of pain in the body. I mean, it describes the hospital environment, the stressful environment that is. It explains the speaker's wounded body, the pain that is flowing through him, and the burden of this. But the effect on this to us as a reader is that the imagery makes us feel the reality of the pain that the speaker is feeling. And it is like this Buckdancer is like a literal juxtaposition that here's the pain and suffering of the speaker, and here's the lively energy of this imagined dancer that this guy is like reaching out for in the hospital. It shows that life really continues even though that you're suffering. Even though you're suffering deep down in the hole, life still goes on. You're still living and there's still hope. That doesn't matter. And now the third device in this is enjambment. I mean, throughout this whole poem, I mean, I hope I read it right, but yeah, I hope I displayed that this enjambment creates a flowing rhythm similar to a dance. It mimics the continuous and methodical movement of a buckdancer, and it, like how a buckdancer is with rhythmic and it flows, but it also reflects the speaker's wandering thoughts in the mind. Like if you were just left in your thoughts after surgery in pain, your mind's gonna wander, your mind's gonna go places, and it's gonna reach for hope. And this speaker's hope is the Buckdancer. And now there's a tone shift in this novel. I mean, this poem shows a shift when he fully imagines this Buckdancer perform. It's like reminiscing of the time of watching this Buckdancer perform. I mean, before this turning point and pivot, it's focusing on the pain in the hospital and numbness of being in the hospital setting. But the dancer represents like being free, movement, resilience, and energy to get through this battle. And the literal meaning of this shift is that it goes from suffering to endurance in life, from death to life. And now, the modern connection is that mental resilience is connected to pain and suffering. Like, it introduces a topic that wasn't well known at this time. Like, mental strength really influences physical recovery. Like, let's use me as an example. I went through extensive knee surgery. Like, my physical recovery was influenced by my mental strength. Let's say I was all doom and gloom about this recovery. I was like, oh, nothing's gonna happen, I'm never gonna be fixed. Well then, of course I'm not gonna get anywhere in my recovery. Like, your brain influences the recovery of your body. And this is a topic that Dickey is introducing to the masses when people didn't really think of mental states back in the day. They were just like, oh, I don't want to go to a shrink, like a shrink's gonna do nothing for my body. Like, what are you talking about? What is this talk? But I mean, some modern connections are like athletes recovering from injuries, like exactly me. That mental resilience does get you through suffering, and it's like a connection into people dealing with hospital stays. I mean, that's a reality for a lot of people, like with health issues and just old age. But the central idea is that mental strength can help you overcome physical suffering, which was a topic we knew at this age. And you can compare this to like the mentality of elite athletes. Like, think of Kobe. I mean, Kobe was the Black Mamba. I mean, he spoke about pushing through pain with the expectation to perform. Pain gives you performance, and this is exactly what this poem is talking about. mental strength leads you to physical performance, you know? You have no physical recovery without mental strength at first. You need a good basis, and that's what this poem introduces to us as the reader. And now, this poem still scores today because just like 60 years ago, everybody still suffers. I mean, we're human. Come on. Because I mean, no matter how rich, strong, powerful, king, queen, poor, you still have suffering. I mean, that's just the reality of being a human. And this poem is like a guide for everybody, how your mentality can help you be resilient through difficult moments in life. I mean, we are all human. We all have our own struggles, and we can get through that through mental strength. And now, let's talk about it. I am in the South Division, personally, and this is sort of like the regional connection. Now, James Dickey was from Georgia. I mean, it's a part of Southern literary, like area, you know? Like, the Southern characteristics in this poem are, well, the Buckdancer, come on, I mean, folk traditions. I mean, Buckdancing is a traditional Southern folk dance connected to, like, Southern Appalachia, like, the rural Southern culture. Like, that's where Georgia is. That's where James Dickey is from. That's Southern Appalachia. That's where these Southern rhythmic folk dances were from. And now, James Dickey, he personally, James Dickey is a guy. He displays masculine physical imagery throughout his poetry. He focuses on physical endurance, survival, and like the masculinity of the human body. I mean, he's a guy. This was really long ago.
But as we all know, this was the Southern. I mean, slavery existed. I mean, that what is where the Buckdancer originated. I mean, the Buckdancer was the slave. The Buckdancer went through struggles. The Buckdancer went through discrimination. The Buckdancer went through discrimination. But the Buckdancer still danced. The Buckdancer, despite pain, despite suffering, I mean, he still danced. He still had a good time. He still had hope. And this is what the pain in the hospital reflects. Like, this is that Southern storytelling style that originates from this, like, pre-slavery, this slavery era in the Southern America. I mean, James Dickey was a white guy, but I mean, he was still from the South. He still knows the culture. I mean, he still knows that Southern storytelling style where it's personal memory and physical experience, and he implements the Southern culture of Buckdancing, even though he was white and didn't know the struggles of the Buckdancer. He still knew the tradition and knew where this stuff came from. But the Buckdancer is what this whole poem revolves around. The Buckdancer represents the Southern rural traditions where music, rhythm, and dance were essential to community life. I mean, frankly, as a slave, that's all you had, your community. All you had was rhythm, music, and dance. That's where popular music traditions came from, like reggae and like a bunch of like these colonial slaves that made culture that is prominent in our culture today, and many people don't know this. But now you guys decide who wins, and I believe that Buckdancer's choice deserves to win your vote for this matchup because it combines powerful imagery and it's an extended metaphor and deep emotional insight that you and me can use. Like, this isn't a story about some grand king or queen that you can't apply to your life. This is real life advice that James Dickey is giving us. Like, you can take away something from this poem and use it in your life. Like, who doesn't want that? It was free advice, free from James Dickey. You should vote for that. But James Dickey really basically transforms a moment of physical pain into like reflection and like the glorification of human endurance. Like, think about it. The human body is able to endure some gruesome things. Like, think of it. Open heart surgery, a full lung transplant, something simple like knee surgery. Like, the ability of the body to heal itself is just amazing, and James Dickey is reflecting on that reality of modern healthcare. It really is expensive insurance. But even though this is old, survival and mental resilience still matters just as much across generations. I've been your host, Ethan Turner, and sorry for the background noise. That is a turtle, and his name is Pebbles, and he's 13 years old.